nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. So what difference might it make? I'm not asking you to believe that you have to believe me. I'm asking you to think about what difference might it make if the Lord has come when we have to face hard things? Does it make any difference at all? Like there's still the hard things, and yeah, there's Christmas, but the two don't really relate. What's the hard thing that you've had to face? I came across this week that some of you are familiar with, is it called The Messiah? I'm not a musical guy. What, that dude Handel?
Handel's Messiah.
Handel's Messiah. You guys familiar with it? Anybody heard of it? You probably sung it once or twice, maybe. The whole Hallelujah chorus thing, Have you seen the flash mob Hallelujah choruses? Pretty cool. Here's what I didn't know. When Handel wrote The Messiah, he did it apparently in 3 weeks. His eyesight was failing at the time. He was going blind. And it is possible, as I'm reading here, that he was, because of his outstanding debt, that they were looking to take him to debtor's prison. His eyesight's failing. He's poor. I mean, he's like looking at jail time because he can't pay his bills. He's writing Handel's Messiah, and he did it in 3 weeks' time. And when he was asked what kept him pushing through with all the other stuff going on, he said he credited the completion of his work to one ingredient, joy. He was quoted as saying that he felt as if his heart would burst with joy at what he was hearing in his mind. And if you've ever listened to the Hallelujah chorus, I've tried to listen and work that through in my mind a different way this year. The guy who wrote it, not doing well physically, not doing well financially, is putting that piece together. How does that happen? Did a little research. Roughly 20% of Americans in October, November poll, 1 in 5 of us said that we're feeling sad or disappointed this time of year. I read a New York Post article that said that 57% of adults feel increasingly stressed due to family dynamics and the lack of feeling like you've got enough money to get through Christmas this year. That's almost 60% of us feeling that stress. When the New York Times did a magazine a couple years back, 19% of those interviewed said they feel really happy. 24% said they feel not too happy. More of us feel less happy than happy this time of year. How come? Now, I know there's a variety of reasons. You could be grieving. This could be sad for you as you think back over past Christmases. It could be there are people in your world that are no longer part of your world. There's a lot of emotion that comes into these days. Some of you have to spend more time with family. That's a drag. Some of you love spending time with your family, all right? But some of you, if you're honest, like I think I've told you, I didn't realize that the Wednesday preceding Thanksgiving is called Drunksgiving. that it is that their most alcohol sales that happen all year happen on the Wednesday evening prior to Thanksgiving. And that to me is interesting because I'm like, why? I mean, we got this big holiday, but it's because, as they've surveyed, a couple things are going on. College kids coming back home, haven't seen everybody goes out, and they actually call it Blackout Wednesday is another name for it, all right? They just get hammered. Excuse me. The other dynamic, though, that they've researched and found is that people get hammered because they know they got to face people they don't want to see on the next day. That's stinking sad, friends, that people feel like they've got to go to those lengths. And it might not be anybody here, it might not be anybody online, but I'm telling you it's happening out in culture. And like, all right, this is the holidays? Like, I don't want to see these people. I don't want to be with these people. I got the stress of money. Like, man, it's supposed to be happy, and I'm not feeling anything but. How? Is that it? Or is there a place where Handel's able, because of what he's got in his mind of just thinking praise to God, that he's got something that's driving him to do a masterpiece? Which is it? And are you just sort of stuck? If you're just like one of the ones that are like, I hate this time of year, is that okay? I guess okay. Be miserable? Or is it possible you could be something different? And one of the characters in the Christmas story, if we peel back some of the stuff that makes us think like it was all romantic, and like, what did this guy, what did he really face? What was it really like for him, the first Christmas? And if this guy found joy, is it possible that your circumstances, though different, may not be worse than his? And if he found joy, could you find joy? If you've got a Bible, if you've got an app, would you open it to Luke chapter 2? Luke 2 is his account of the birth of Jesus. I want to read it to refresh our memory. If you've grown up in church, you probably have it memorized. We said last week that Luke wrote the Gospel of Luke to a guy that we're not sure who he really was. Pretty important figure. And Luke set out to journal the life of Jesus. Interviewing people, talking to people. He was going to report back to this guy Theophilus, which the Gospel of Luke is. Hey, most excellent Theophilus, you asked for this, I'm going to give you a report. And so as he's out talking to people, getting first-person narratives, hey, I heard this story, is this true? He wrote Luke. In Luke chapter 2, he's going back to the journey of how Jesus got from one spot, or really how Mary and Joseph and the unborn Jesus got from here to here. In the days of Caesar Augustus, he issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went back then to his own town to register. And so Joseph, he went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. And he went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. And while they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. And she wrapped the son in cloths and placed him in a manger because there's no room in the inn. I've read this countless times. And on first glance, it really looks like there's just not much there. But I want to peel the onions back a little bit. All right, one of the things that I want you to understand that I think the birth of Jesus talks about is that, as I say here, that joy isn't found in having the perfect life. It's found by making room for Jesus in your real life. There's a lot of people out there that think that joy is when you got it all together. When I get my act together, when I have the money that I think I need, when I've got the love relationship that I've been looking for, when my kids finally start listening to me, when I get that job, when I retire, you're always thinking when I. It's always out there. You'll get joy when your life gets together. And that's the reason you don't have it now, right? That's the reason you don't feel any Christmas spirit, as they call it. Is because you've just got this just jambalaya going on in your gut, and you're like, how can I? Joseph had the same nonsense going on. Okay? Let's just back up, and if we can, just think with the guy for a second. I need to stop. Can I stop that? Oh, I stopped it. Okay. He finds out that his bride-to-be is pregnant. He knows he's not the guy. There's no question in his mind. He's not the father. If I'm to believe this guy who came and said, your bride, she's going to have a baby, and then your bride comes and says, oh yeah, I'm going to have a baby, and you're not the father, what are you going to do? Your reputation's on the line. Your family's going to be talked about. You don't think it's going to be a mess? See, we've sanitized it. We've said, oh, isn't it so cute? Anybody following football this week? What's happened to Michigan former coach? News breaks. He's got a mistress. He's got a woman on the side. He's a married man with 3 kids. He goes to confront her. Literally all heck breaks loose. He goes from coaching against Ohio State 2 weeks ago to spending 2 nights in jail. Fired on Monday. You don't think when scandal hits, it's a mess? Then you're missing what Joseph was dealing with. It's like, how can this be? I'm envisioning that, like, I'm going to have, like, this nice, quiet, like, we're going to have, like, a little private ceremony, and then we'll, like, go on a honeymoon somewhere, and we'll just settle down, and I'll work with my hands, and we'll just have this nice little cozy thing to words out. She's what? And so in the midst of this, he now finds out he's got to go where he was to the town of Bethlehem, because the government said, hey, we need to figure out how many of you are out there for the purpose of knowing how to tax you. So he's got to make an 80 to 90 mile journey from St. Louis to Hannibal, St. Louis to Jeff City, St. Louis to Vandalia, on foot, in about 4 to 5 days. My wife was pregnant 5 times, 4 children. When it was time to go to the hospital, we got in the car and we went. Can you imagine traveling 4 to 5 days on foot, on a donkey? You're due. You think that was a joyous time? Nobody in their wildest thinks, oh, wow, that's so romantic. That's so cool. I wish we could do that. Could we go back in time, do it differently? This is what Mary and Joseph are dealing with. Okay. Now, before I get into how Joseph found some joy, I want us to look at maybe how it is that we miss it through some of the other characters. And the one guy who gets a rap, and it's usually not a good rap, is the innkeeper. There was no room in the inn. The inns in Bethlehem was not a big town. Bethlehem would have been, I was trying to think this week, Bethlehem compared to, let's say St. Louis would be like Weldon Springs. A couple hundred people. I don't know how big Weldon Springs is, but you got St. Louis, hotels everywhere you turn around. You got Bethlehem. Bethlehem was not like a big deal. You weren't going to have 6 different options to stay. They had an inn. The inn would have had an upstairs. That's where the guests stayed. And then generally down below was where they kept the animals. And so he's looking all over town. Should have had family there. Remember, he's from this town. That's why he went back there. But there's no family looking to greet him. And they're knocking. They're trying to find a place to stay. And the innkeeper's like, I got no room, but you can have the basement. You can make yourself at home in the hay. And one of the things that I think causes people to miss the joy of Christmas, as they really are, maybe like has been conjectured with the innkeeper, I'm not trying to give him a bad rap, but it fits, is maybe he's just too busy. He had a lot going on. I'm not faulting the dude. He would have been wall to wall, and I think there's a part of me that says he was doing the best he could. The best I got is make some room among the donkeys and the cows down below if you want. It's better than the outside. But there are some of you that would have to say that you're just multitasking and you're slammed and you're just flat out too busy. I think I read this week a stat that said that 78% of parents who have kids 18 and under, the number one thing that keeps them from enjoying the holidays is they're slammed. They're just going everywhere. They are too busy. That's a lot. That's almost 80% of parents surveyed with young ones in the house. Christmas is stressful, okay? I think there are, maybe he would just say, like some others, like, I didn't know it was Jesus, the prophesied Messiah. If only I'd have known. The dude's Jewish. I'm not, again, man, it just sounds like I'm slamming him. I think there are people who are like, oh, you know what? Man, I just don't really like, I sing the carols, Joy to the World. You didn't sing it, but I purposely played it on that video. The Lord has come. Let earth receive her King. Do you feel like that? Not guilt. I'm just asking you. Do you feel like the King has come and we get again another chance to remember his birth and celebrate who Jesus is and what he's done for us? Oh, I don't know. I didn't know that. It's just, we've always just done Christmas. It's just another religious holiday. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I think there's King Herod, Caesar Augustus, both saw themselves really as deity. Some people just think that they're God. Some people your world revolves around you, and it's pretty small. And if you take offense at that, take offense at it, because that's the truth, right? And that's where the king and Caesar, I was really amazed by this, that Caesar Augustus really set himself up as deity. They worshiped him as God. And so when you see stuff in the news, and when you hear of people, or maybe it's at your work, that you just really get the sense of their arrogance, and they just think they're the be-all, the end-all, man, you should, that should set off some alarm bells. I think there are people that are I just don't care. Religious leaders. Matthew 2, these guys who knew the scriptures. Remember the wise men show up and they said to Herod, hey, Herod, where's the king of the Jews? Now, Herod thought he was the king of the Jews, but he wasn't Jewish. But he reigned over the Jewish, the Roman people, government just said, hey, Herod, you be in charge. We don't want to deal with the Jewish population. They're okay, I'll be king. And so now they ride in and where's the one? And Herod gets all troubled. It says he's agitated in his spirit, Matthew 2. He's because he's the guy. And now this is going to be a threat, this baby, the real king of the Jews? And they ask the religious leaders, where's the one? And they go, oh, you know what? The Old Testament prophet said he's going to be born in Bethlehem. Would have been a 6-mile journey. Yeah, check out Bethlehem if you want. I think there's some people who really don't care. You're just really indifferent to it all. And my challenge might be to you, if that's you, to think about something. One of the things that struck me as I was preparing for this is Jesus Christ is the dividing mark of history. AD, BC. What separates BC from AD? I mean, it's Jesus. And so we got really smart. And we said before Common Era and Common Era. And my brain was laying in bed one night this week going, so what separates the difference between before Common Era and Common Era? Jesus. It's but okay. But if you don't want to be religious, I'm totally cool with that, right? Just use your BC, E, and CE. And if I asked you, tell me again what the dividing point is? Jesus. Okay. All right. So here's what I ask you to think about. My brain just kept going. How many religious leaders, how many different religions celebrate the birth of their religious guru? How many can you name besides Christianity? I found out there's not many. Now, they celebrate maybe his wisdom. They celebrate the things he did. But Christianity is almost exclusive in that we go back and celebrate the birthday of the one that we say is King Jesus. Why? Why Christianity? I guess somebody had to. I don't know. Why? Could I ask you just to think about something that the Bible teaches? What does Emmanuel mean? What does it mean? Say it out loud.
God with us.
Do you understand how that is like night and day different from the other religions? The other religions don't even purport to teach God has come to be with you. Jesus said, Emmanuel, God with us. So that means that God's with you in your mess. God's with you in whatever's troubling your spirit. God's with you as you look at wrapping this year up, looking into next year. If it be true that Jesus is God, at the very least, we've separated history on this guy. If you're not sure you believe, I'm just asking you, why so much emphasis on this guy? Why? Why did we divide history over him? Why does the word say that he is God with us? God come to walk among us. Because, friends, to me, that's a game changer. Is God with you today? I'm not asking you to nod your head because you're in church. I want you to know in your spirit, in your soul, does God walk with you, or are you just not sure? And I would think when we're not sure, when we feel like we've got to go on our own, and the stuff comes at us, it can really feel overwhelming because where do you go for help? You really are on your own devices. You really are like, how smart are you? How strong are you? How much money do you have? How many resources do you have? Because it's on you to fix this. What if God walks with you? What if Jesus Christ is God who came and says, those who trust and come to me, I will in no way cast out. I'll in no way throw you out. What if that's the one that we worship? What if, in spite of all the stuff that Joseph knew, my wife's pregnant, I didn't do it. I got to go on this 4 or 5 day, I don't want to go. I'd rather just bury my head under the pillow. Why am I going? What's going to happen? Where are we going to stay on the other end? What am I going to do with this baby? Where do we call home? I'm not prepared for this. And you don't think those are real feelings? I'll tell you, I've experienced them personally. Patty would tell you the birth of our first child, it wasn't the birth of our first child. We miscarried our first child. And when our first child, when we found out she was pregnant, Patty would tell you, my just ecstatic, like, I can't believe this is happening, response was, no way. And you laugh. It was painful for us. It was painful. She was filled with joy. I was thinking that we were going for year 5. This is year 2. I don't want a kid now. We can't afford a kid now. I'm making youth pastor money. There's no way we can afford a child. I'm not ready. I don't want to be a dad now. We said, if we'd been married 5 years, we would try and have a child. This is year 2. I know what he was. I don't know Joseph. It would be an interesting conversation to know what was going on in his heart as all this was playing out, based on what we know about people. And so he goes, and he's there in Bethlehem, and the time comes for the child to be born. And I think if I could encourage all of us, as I've just looked at this guy's life a little bit this week, Joseph doesn't say a word. If you look at the Gospels, Joseph never says a word. There's no recorded word. So all we have are his actions. What did he do that led me to believe the man had something going on inside of a joyous spirit? The first thing that just struck me was he moved forward. He took the next step. He did the next right thing. He got up. It says here in the text, so Joseph went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea to Bethlehem. You don't think it takes some courage to take the next step? How many of you are still stuck? How many of you are stuck today? You know there's something that you need to do. You know there's a next step that you want to take, but you haven't taken it. And you know why you haven't taken it? You want to say it out loud? Why don't people take the next step? They're afraid. You're afraid. You're afraid of you don't know what it'll be on the other end of that next step. You're afraid of what it will cost you to take that next step. Maybe you need to apologize to somebody, and you're fearful that if I apologize, I'm going to look like what? Some of you are stuck because God has been putting on your heart to do something, and you're like, man, I just don't know if I do this, what? So don't minimize. When we read in here, like how many times have I blown by this? So Joseph got up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea to Bethlehem. He got up. He left. He did the next right thing. And if you want to find joy, if you would want to experience, well, what is joy, Mike? Because we've said before, happiness is based on your circumstances. My wife's pregnant. I've got to go 5 days someplace that I don't want to go. Everybody's talking about us. Everybody is kind of gossiping behind her back. Will you tell me how happy he was? How happy do you think he was? Do you think he was happy? Would you be happy? You understand that that's the difference? Happiness is often based on your circumstances. If your world's going well, you feel happy. You got this emotion that feels like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. In fact, I thought it was interesting. Merriam-Webster dictionary said that joy is like an extended state of happiness. And I thought, well, that's kind of what I would maybe expect from Merriam-Webster dictionary. But joy, as God teaches it, is there's something in your spirit that is like the circumstances, your happenings might not be cool, but in your heart, you're like, I'm trusting God's got this. I don't see how. I don't see the other side of this, but I believe that God has me. God is with me, and so therefore, that's joy. That's how people get to a spot in their spirit where like they're not blowing up on the inside. It's because God is sustaining them on the inside. They're not blowing up and like going all crazy because they believe that God still has them. I think that's how Joseph said, okay, here's what I got to do. They told me I got to go to Bethlehem. Mary, we got to go. I know you don't want to. I know you don't feel like it. I know this baby could be born any day. I read something this week that said that if Mary was having Jesus even today and she had to travel, she'd be going on foot. They won't let you on an airplane. After 36 weeks, you can't get on an airplane without, I believe, a doctor's notice, right? So she probably might not be walking, they'd be in the car. But the same deal, you're not like hopping on a jet going somewhere when you're this far along. What has you stuck? What's the thing you've been afraid of facing? What's the thing that has scaring you from going forward? The second thing that I think that Joseph, the action that he took that I just struck me here was he chose Mary over taking the easy way out. He had options. He had options. He did not have to take Mary, so he went there to register with Mary, who he was pledged to be married with to him, and was expecting a child. I have it highlighted in red in my Bible because that's significant. He didn't throw her out. I want you really to ponder that. Because we know that he could have just, the law said he could have her killed. She was unfaithful. In that day, if you're not familiar, we use the word engagement because it's the most like it. In Jewish culture, to be betrothed to someone meant that you had said that you're promised to each other, but you're not going to be intimate until after the wedding. And usually that period would be anywhere from months to a year down the road. okay? But the difference in our culture today is if you break off the engagement, it's like, okay, well, we decided not to get married, and then people shrug their shoulders. This would be very much like to break off the betrothal period, you'd have to get a divorce. And so even though you hadn't consummated the marriage, in every other aspect, in the eyes of culture, you were married. The guy went off, he's getting his home ready, he's going to take in the bride. And so when he finds out that Mary is with child, he can have her killed because she's been sleeping around. As far as he knows, she did something behind his back. Matthew says, I don't want to kill her because I love her, but I can send her away. I have the right as the man in this culture. I can send her out of here. I can kick her out. He still didn't have to take her. But we read here that when the angel came to Joseph, said, don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife. She's been true to you. The one she's carrying is born of the Spirit of God. He chose her. Friends, I know that when you choose people, you always win. I think the thing that ought to mark you and I as followers of Christ is our compassion for other people. I think when you lose your compassion for people, you have lost something of what? The Spirit of God in you. When you begin to label people by the color of their skin, you've lost something of the Spirit of God in you. When you look at people and judge them by what they wear or don't wear, you've lost something of the Spirit of God in you. Because Jesus doesn't do any of that. He welcomes all. All are welcome to him. And that ought to be the distinguishing mark. You say, Warman, that just really... No, I'm just telling you, Jesus said, by this all men will know you're my follower when you do what? Say it out loud. Love. When you love. And you fail to love, you fail to show compassion, you can still be a good person. I'm just not sure you align with what the Father is all about. Third thing that led me to think that Joseph found joy was he made space for Jesus with what he had. Now think about it. He's going to a strange town, knocking on doors. There's only a couple of inns. Innkeeper says, hey, I got the barn down below. When I think about my world, I got time for Jesus when everything else is cool. When things are going well, I got time for Jesus. When things start to go sideways, until I get really desperate and I start shooting up prayers, I don't have time for him. I don't make space for him. I'm going to step on some toes here, because this is what I found to be true as a pastor. So let me just step on. If your toe hurts after I say this, so be it. When people's finances begin to get tight, you know the first thing that goes? Giving to church. Giving to the church. Why is that? It's not your kid's soccer program. It's not your 401k. It's your giving to the Lord. Why is that? And I get it. I would say because you don't see the value. You don't see like, man, my kid's not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to take that vacation. They're not going to look at me and go, oh. Do you make space for God in your finances? Or are you waiting for it to be perfect? Do you make space for God with your kids? I was thinking about this with parents. If I can speak to those of us who are parents and grandparents, are you making space for God in the life of your kids? Well, Warman, what do you mean by that? I mean, like, how are your kids going to know that God is real if they don't see it in you? How will they know? You're going to tell them? I get it. But what are kids looking for? They're looking to see it. You praying? You praying with them? You praying over them? They ever see you with the Word open? Is there any chance they ever catch you studying on your own? Hopefully not. I mean that. Hopefully you're not doing it to be seen. But I've heard from some kids that, you know what? It's just kind of funny sometimes how they catch their mom or dad over the word, praying, singing, early in the morning, late at night. And they're aware that their parents' faith is real. And that's different from just going to church. That's different from going to church. That's when you're making space for God, as I like to say, Monday through Saturday, not Sunday. Right? So Joseph is like, he can't control Rome. He can't control the innkeeper. He can't even say, Mary, can you just hold on? Really, can you just chill for a little bit? Because this is not the right time to have a baby. Not here. Not in this place. Joseph's like, all right, what do we got? Okay, we got a little trough. We got some cloth somewhere. Okay, here it comes. All right, push. I don't even know if you do that. Did they have classes? I don't even know. Right? Would you know what to do if you didn't have a class at a hospital? It's like, oh. And then there's Jesus. Do you make space for Jesus in your everyday world? Does he have a place that you create because you're intentional about it? Because this is something that you do? You know what I love about this at the end that I will say to you men? Joseph took responsibility for his family. And he didn't have all the answers. He didn't have it all nailed down. No one gave him a book on how to do it all right. But Joseph stuck up for his wife. He stuck up for his kid. He provided for his family the best that he knew how. And he was responsible and never said a word. Yet I would suggest to you that his life was one of joy and simple obedience to what God was calling him to do. I think that's how you end up on the other side with a heart that's ready, that says, Jesus, I welcome you into the mess. It's not all perfect. It's not all put together. But what I got, I give to you. In your bulletin, I've got there at the end, I've got some things that I want to just ask you to think about. So, joy isn't found in having the perfect life. It's found in making room for Jesus in your real life. Who are you praying for? I've got up there who you can invite for Christmas, but just who are you praying for? Have you got a couple of people you're praying for? That God would be at work in their world? Worship team's coming up. What are you trying to control that you need to trust God with? Joseph had no control over any of this. Not his wife, not the circumstances of her birth, not having to go to the city. He had zero control. And some of you are frustrated because you're still trying to control things you have no control over. I was thinking about this in my world. There's some stuff happening behind the scenes at the church that I really don't have any control over. And I'm frustrated. Any of you that have been in positions of leadership, you know if there are things that are supposedly under you, but you can't control them, it's hard. Like, what do you do? Like, you want to fix it, and you can't fix it. And I think maybe God brings those things into our life. The challenge is like, you really think you're in control? Let me show you. What if this week, rather than complain about stuff, you compliment? I think that's true of Joseph. He could have whined his way through this. How do you treat people when it's not going your way? How do you treat your server when the meal's not exactly the way you want it? How do you treat a coworker when they're not doing what you want them to do? You whine, you complain, a little sarcasm. What about, could we look for the good in people? Could you begin your day, Lord, I invite you to help me see and hear you today. What are you listening to on your playlist, on your podcast? Do you need to change the input to something that is more like lifts your soul? The dude had every reason to check out, and he didn't. Every reason to quit, and he didn't. I know you've got your reasons, and I'm not even saying that they're not legit. You're grieving over somebody, you're hurting. Your world's not the way you want it to be. People didn't do what you want them to do. And so it soured your spirit. I'm asking you, could you look to Jesus beginning today for the next 2 weeks? Put a focus on him. Invite him in. See if it wouldn't do something to your spirit. That's what he promises. That's what he specializes in. Let's stand. Let's sing with these hands. Pray with me. Father, as we walk out of here, help us to have eyes that are up, ears that are listening to conversations. We're seeing people. Lord, if there's a way that you might use us as followers of your Son to lighten someone else's load, will you help us see that? God, thank you that we're not mighty in number, but it looks like we'll be close to 500 meals. Lord, there's a family that's going to have some presents under a tree because of people's generosity. I know, God, I fall often prey to just wanting some big super thing that I can do or that I can see, and just joy is found in getting up and moving like Joseph did, protecting his family, creating space for you in his everyday world. Doesn't seem like much until we look back. So I pray for these people you love. Father, help them not despise small things. Help them realize even simple acts of obedience threaten darkness. Make of us, God, something that casts a light on you, shines on Jesus, points people to him. Would you bless these people? Father, would you give them joy? Would you help them see that you were with them, even in the mess? For your kingdom's sake, for your name we pray. Amen. God bless you as you go. Have a good week. We'll see you soon.